We're going to fill out an LLN skill assessment summary for John now. Now yours will be blank, and this recording has been done to help guide you through the process. So yours will have the candidate's name, John Smith, but you put in today's date, also put in your name under assessed by, and then we start looking through the support that we have just provided for John. So we didn't really discuss or focus on any support in his learning. That still is at an ACSF level 2, but we did support him with the assessment on the hazard ID. He no longer needed to read the hazard ID form, and he didn't have to write on the hazard ID form. Instead, he was actually able to use some oral communication with that. So we can see here that his oral communication level is at a standard that's acceptable for the requirements of the training. That was at a level 3, and so was his numeracy. So these are the two areas that we're going to be focusing on to give him some support. So what we did was we replaced, you can use any words to this effect. With oral instructions. Sorry, I don't know why that moved. So you replaced reading the hazard ID form with oral instructions, and you accepted oral responses to hazard ID procedure. I'll say hazards identified. And who to report hazards to. Okay, so so because we didn't have that product, that hazard ID form, we can say there that we replaced the hazard ID product with an observation checklist. And then we can just copy and replace that. Okay. All right. So there we go. We can show the differences to the assessment materials and instruments that we've used, and we've discussed what we've accomplished there. So now we go down to assessment tasks completed, and it would be identifying forklift hazards, and one might be to do with speed, and we also did identifying hazards in the forklift area. Accesses to where the pedestrians can go. Now we can use this section to talk about John's educational background, so you might have something to the effect that John has English as a second language, and finds reading, writing and language core skills in the workplace require support, LLN support. No knowledge and we don't have any educational background on John. So when we observe John, and from what we've spoken to with Mike, his boss, his strengths are numeracy, so we can put strengths, numeracy, and oral communication, because they function at level 3. All right, and his weaknesses. Let's state in this case study that he was a little bit reluctant with his attitude to start familiarising himself with those hazard forms at this stage, because that could be something where he's open to building, you know, his skill sets, his writing and his reading skill sets. So under weaknesses, we can put something like reluctant to develop. I guess he was so reluctant because, you know, he was given such an easy, achievable opportunity there to communicate orally. So really that's where you would be wanting to pass that back to Mike and suggest to Mike that Mike or somebody in the workplace that he already has a good trust relationship with, and obviously there's time and availability there to work through and have John start to practice that skill perhaps. Obviously it has to be fairly efficient with the hourly rate of a trainer, and since there was a more cost-effective assessment method, you can understand, I guess, both John and Mike's reluctance. So it's difficult to say how much of that attitude was really adopted through Mike's own attitude, because he wanted the trainer and assessor in and out as quickly and as cheaply as possible. So at least as far as John's concerned on that assessment report, reluctant to develop reading and writing skills for familiar forms, because that would have helped him starting to look at a reading level 3 in the workplace. So other comments, so that might be a recommendation that a trusted colleague work with John to familiarise him with hazard ID fields. Aim is to reach a level 3 reading level in the workplace. And finally, to complete that form, for recommendations of support, well, we could be recommending to Mike to look into the WELL program, which is that government funding to provide LLN specialist support for John, especially when we're looking at developing those skills. Okay, so at the end of that, all you need to do is save that document and minimise back out or close back out.